Hi everybody and welcome back to the channel. It's been a while since my last video, and if someone is wondering what happened, nothing has happened. It's just that we've been on a job for a couple of weeks where we couldn't film. Not because we've been asked not to film, it's because it was a job that, let's say, it was quite difficult to film. Wasn't anything special to show on the camera, so we decided that we're not gonna film that project. And then we've been on a job where we did the same thing like our last videos. I mean, painting, plastering, some flooring, etc. So today project will be sanding these wooden worktops, more exactly oak worktops. So I will show you how to sand, how to oil, how to clean them, so you have a nice surface after that. I will show you what tools I will use. I will show you what oil I'm gonna use. I hope you can see me. It's the light is not great in here. It's just one window because I had to switch off the lights. Apparently this camera doesn't like the lights being on. You can see some lines on the screen. So I hope this is okay. Otherwise I'll switch on the lights, but then won't be great as well. So yeah, so turning the camera now. That should be, I hope you guys can see. I hope it's clear enough. You see there's just one window because as soon as I open the light you can see these lines, so I'm just gonna keep it off. I don't know what the problem is. I might have to go to the settings, but anyway. So we have these worktops that they need re-oiling. You can see like lighter spots here, darker spots there, same here, light here, dark there. There are a couple of in here again, some marks, some watermarks there. So we're gonna use this oil. It's called tung oil, quick dry tung oil. So obviously this is not a 100% tung oil because tung oil takes days to dry. So in order to do these worktops with pure 100% tung oil, it will take us probably a week or more to do 2-3 coats of oil, because this takes a lot of time to dry. So tung oil is a natural oil. It's food safe. It's very protective, so it does give you a very protective area, but it takes ages to dry. So when you do a kitchen like this and people are living in the house, obviously you need to put the stuff back as soon as possible, so you can't just wait, I don't know, 7 or 10 days for this oil to dry. So you have to use something that is quick dry. I mean, this one is, they say, 4 hours recoating. So recoating after 4 hours, that means you sand it, you apply first coat, and then after 4 hours when it's dry you do a slight sanding and you put another coat on top. But it still requires 24 hours for a fully curing. So obviously don't put anything back or anything heavy back on the worktops before it fully cures, which is 24 hours. So that's the oil. We're gonna use a sanding machine. This in particular, I like this even if it's heavier, and I have a smaller one, but this one has this protection, so I can go against the tiles without being scared that I will damage either the pad, so without damaging the pad or the tiles, because this pad goes very close to this protection here. So I will use this even if it is heavy, and it's heavier than the other one, and it's very powerful. Also, this one has 2 sanding modes. One is aggressive. This one, you can see. Let me go here. Maybe you can see better. So you can see here, one is the dots in here are smaller than this. So this is aggressive mode, and this is a normal mode. So I will not recommend sanding this by hand because it will take a lot of time and the result won't be great. So if you don't have a sander, I will suggest that you should go and purchase the cheapest orbital sander that you can get in your area, 30, 40 euro, pounds, dollars, whatever. It will save you time, and it will definitely come handy in the future, because if you have wooden worktops, you might have to do that regularly. So also we're going to use a staining knife or a utility knife and a scraper, because what we want to do is we want to remove all the silicone that is obviously between the worktop and the tiles. So we want to remove that first, otherwise obviously if you're going to try to keep it and then sanding up to you might go in and it won't look great. So we'll remove it, we'll do the oil, let it dry, and then when it's dry we'll apply another bit of silicone. We're also going to use a dust extractor for the sander, and we're going to try starting with 150 grit, and if that doesn't take the oil from the surface off, we'll go down to 120, but I will try 150 first. I mean, when you're oiling, ideally you want to sand up to 120 or 150, and that's it. You don't want to go any higher than that, but you don't want to go any lower than that. I normally go for 150. Normally worktops come from the factory with 120 grit. They already been sanded in 120. I like to go with 150 over that and then apply the oil. But 120 will also work as long as they done with the orbital sander and you have a nice and smooth surface. So now I will start removing the silicone, and then I will start sanding. This is an old worktop. I already had 2 coats of oil when it was new, and then 3 years ago he had another oil, and now this is how it looks after 3 years. No coats in between, and I can say it does look pretty good. I mean, it's not like massively damaged or anything like that. That's the thing with wood worktops, you always have to keep, so when you do your dishes you have to keep cleaning, so make sure there's no water left, because that will obviously mark the worktop. The joint is still nice and flush, like it was on the first day when we installed this. Yeah, we did install this like 6 years ago, and like I said, 3 years ago we did another oil. It wasn't this one, was something else, but they were pretty much the same. We just need something that will dry quickly so we can do it in a day. We don't want to wait till the next day and so on. So now I'll put the camera on and I'll show you how we remove the silicone, and if there's anything else I'll talk you through. Okay, so in order to remove the silicone we have to use the staining knife. So we have to hold it against the tiles, and then we have to hold it and obviously run to cut the silicone against the worktop. But this will have to be done very nice and easy, so we don't obviously do any chippings and we don't do any marks to the tiles or to the worktop. And then the piece of the silicone that is in the middle of the cut will come off very easily, and then whatever is left we're just going to use this window scraper, and we're going to scrape the tiles and we're going to scrape the worktop very nice and easily, and obviously we'll get everything out. So we have to do this everywhere, and I think the results are pretty good. Once that we finish, we're gonna re-silicone the whole kitchen. Okay, so we removed all the silicone as good as we could. Now we're gonna start sanding. So we have 150 grit. We'll try with 150. If that's not good enough, then we'll go down to 120. We'll do everything we can with a big sander, with a 150 diameter sander, and then we'll do the corners with a different sander, and behind the sink and behind the hob we'll have to do it by hand. There are tools that obviously you can do it, but there's no point for me buying any of those tools because I don't do this that much. So I just don't want to have any more tools because you also need a space where to store them and so on. Yeah, so I'll put the camera there and I will show you how we sanding with the big machine. Then I will show you the corners and then on the back, and then we'll move back to the oiling. A good tip will be when you are using an electric sander, and obviously it will be connected to a vacuum cleaner or a dust extractor. Make sure your dust extractor is reduced, so the amount of suction is reduced to probably half. Obviously, if you have one dust extractor that has a volume, so you can reduce that volume of suction to half, because otherwise if you will use it with the full volume you might find yourself doing like square marks. So depending of what oil you're applying, you might see this in the finish. Okay, so we started with 150. I think it's good enough. I'm happy with the surface. You can see the difference between this and that. Yeah, you can see there's quite a bit of difference. The only tricky part is obviously around here. If you have an electric hob and you can remove it, that's even better. If you can remove the sink easier and then put it back, that's even better. This sink is being glued with silicone, so won't be easy. This is gas. We don't want the gas man to come and take it off and reconnect it, so we leave it in place. But if you can remove them, that's great. There's less hassles. You can see in here, obviously it does create a bit of dust because you have to the sander is not on the surface fully, so that's when you will create a bit of dust. I'm happy with this, yeah, so I don't want to go all the way to the bare wood. I want to take the layer of oil from the surface. I'm not interested in going into the wood to remove all the oil because you will have to do a lot of sanding depending what oil they used before. But as long as it's like this, I'm happy. Before we applying the oil, we'll take a wet cloth and we wipe the surface, and then if there is any spots that need more attention, you will see them. So I'll show you again how we do the corners. In the meantime, I will sand all the worktops with a big machine. Okay, so we did all the sanding with a big sander. Now we just have to do the edges in some places, corners, and behind the sink and behind the oven. So for the corners I'll use this. Yeah, this is a very inexpensive sander, but it will be way quicker to do the corners than to do them by hand. You can use a multi-tool for that with a sanding attachment, but I will use this. Is a bit faster. So I'll do that, and then all we have left to do is to do this bit here and that bit there. Okay, so we did all the corners, all the edges, all the surface. All we have left is behind the sink and behind the hob. So we're gonna use a piece of timber, a block, some double-sided tape, and we're gonna stick some some sandpaper to this block, and then we're just gonna use this block to sand, but we're just gonna stick the sandpaper just on the bottom side, so not on the sides. So that means we're not gonna scratch any of the tiles or the sink or the hole. You don't have to stick your sandpaper to this timber block. You can just use it as is, just roll it and use it. The only problem with that is that you have to be very careful because you might scratch the tiles or the sink or the hob. This way, if the sandpaper is just on the bottom side, then obviously you're not going to scratch anything else apart from the worktop surface. Okay, so double-sided tape, 120 sandpaper, yeah, 120 sandpaper. We have to do it in two passes, so we do 120 and then 150 because obviously we have to do this by hand. It will take us longer if we just use 150, so we're going to use 120 and then 150, same process. Okay, I will be honest with you, sanding by hand is not fun, especially when you have a few different sanders, but none of them is actually capable to do this job. Thanks God it was just a small section, and I couldn't imagine how long it will take to do the whole surface by hand. Okay, so after we finish sanding behind the sink, behind the hob, it took me about 20 minutes to do it. I have to go down to 80 grit and then 120 and then 150. Obviously the first sanding with 80 is the hardest because you need to take all the oil and then the rest you just finishing the wood. So it took me about 20 minutes to do them both. So now I hoovered, I took the dust as much as was possible from the worktops, and now I have this cloth. I wet it so it's wet. It's not super wet, so there's no water dripping, but it's wet. So what I will do, I will start wiping all the surfaces with this. So what this will do is will raise the grain, and then once the grain is raised, we'll leave this obviously to dry. We'll leave the water to dry, and then we'll go once again with a smaller sander with 150 just to finish it off. Because if you don't do that, then when you put the first coat of oil, it will raise the grain, and then you will have to do sanding. You have to do more sanding otherwise. So we'll use this wet cloth just to raise the grain and obviously clean all the dust residues. So this is very simple. Just take the wet cloth and make sure you wipe all the surfaces. And like I said, this will do two things. One, it will raise the grain, and second, it will obviously remove all the dust particles that are still on the surface. Okay, so now we're ready to apply the oil. After the surface dried, we resand it with 150 with old sandpaper that we used prior. So the sandpaper that we use to sand the surface, because it's used, and then we just use that kind of like finish. So take all the fibers that they've been raised by using the wet cloth. Now what we have to do now is to start applying the oil. We'll apply the oil and then we'll let it set for 10-15 minutes, so it will get into the wood, and then we're just going to use a blue roll, and we're just going to wipe all the oil, all the excess, and then we leave it to dry for 4 hours, and then we'll recoat it. So now it's time to apply the oil. I'm just going to use a brush. I'm just going to pour some oil from the can onto the actual worktop and brush it from there. This being a natural oil, so it doesn't have any coloring. You don't have to worry about brushing in the same way with the wood grain or with the wood fibers. You just have to brush it on or use a cloth or whatever. You just have to put it on. Don't worry too much about try to make it nice and smooth, because it won't matter. After 15-20 minutes the wood will obviously took
the oil that he needed, and then you're just gonna obviously wipe the excess. So just put it on as fast as you can, and don't forget to paint under the worktop as well, especially where you have appliances.
Okay, so the oil is done, so the first coat is done. Now we just have to wait 10 more minutes probably, and then we'll take some of that blue roll and wipe all the excess off. Okay, so one piece of advice will be, once that you finish with the paper towels or blue roll or cloths, whatever you're gonna use to wipe the excess from the worktop, put them in a plastic bag, pour some water in, and put them outside, because sometimes some of the oils can catch fire. So basically there will be a chemical reaction, they will go up in the temperature, and then they will self-ignite. So that's not a joke, it's not just a legend, that actually happened. So be careful with that.
After we allow about 20 minutes for the oil to penetrate the wood, we're just gonna take some blue tissues, and we're just gonna wipe all the excess from the worktop. So we have to do this and repeat it till there will be nothing on the actual tissue. Otherwise, if you leave some oil on the worktop, you will find that that area won't be nice and smooth. So after we cleaned all the oil excess from the worktops, we're just gonna put all the tissues and all the rags in this plastic bag. We're gonna put them under the sink, put some water inside, make sure they are all wet, and after that we're just gonna take them outside in the garden, and we're just gonna leave them somewhere where there's no risk for any fire or anything like that.
Okay, so it's been already 4 hours and it doesn't look like it's fully dry. So I'm not going to use any sandpaper to rub down in between coats. I'm going to use this. This is like 1000 grit sponge or something like that, polishing pad. The manufacturer also recommending to use something like it in between coats. Most of the time you can use 240. I use 240 and we'll do the same. This time I'm going to use this. So I'm just going to use this. I'm just going to go everywhere and rub it down, and if there is any dust particles or anything, this will take it away, and plus it will leave everything much smoother. So I'll use this, I'll go everywhere, and then I will apply the second coat like we did with the first.
Second coat of oil will have to be applied the same like the first one, so there's nothing different, just that this time will go a bit faster because the wood, it's already sealed.
Okay, so I think this will be everything. Like I said, sanding, oiling, 2 coats of oil. If the worktop is obviously new, you might have to do 3 or 4. This one obviously wasn't new, you already had like 5 coats before. So when you're sanding down, obviously you won't be able to take everything out because the oil penetrates quite deep in the wood, but 2 coats will be enough. So we'll do the second one, we'll leave it for like 15-20 minutes, and then we'll wipe the excess, and we'll leave everything till tomorrow. Tomorrow, after 24 hours, we'll redo the silicone, and we'll put the appliances back, and that's it. Okay, so this is the final product. We just put the second coat of oil. It does look very good, same like when it was new. So I hope now everybody can understand the process, so everybody can see the process: sanding, cleaning, oiling, sanding, oiling, wiping, and that's it. It's not complicated. You do need some kind of tools to do that, but at the end of the day, I think it's a pretty simple process. So sorry once again for the light. I hope this was this video was very informative, and don't forget to like. Don't forget to press the like button if you like the video. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you next time with a different video. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.